we implemented a reading lesson. We introduced reading quizzes for year 7 and 8 into the library, because they did have a library lesson on their timetable, but of course what usually happens. So once we introduced this, a set of books they were going to read and a set of quizzes they were going to answer on, they were no longer just hiding around the bookshelves and pretending to read. There was nobody, we wanted nobody reading the Guinness World Book of Records. We needed to make reading accountable. And so I brought in the big book quiz and implemented it in all library lessons. And that was once a week. And I'll talk more about the big book quiz later.
Claire,
yes, sorry.
can I just ask a question there? When you talked about the reading quizzes, was that through a reading program? Because we do something similar with Accelerated Reader. I just wondered if it was a program or whether that was something you designed yourselves.
Well, we did have Accelerated Reader, but we just couldn't make it work for us. Well, it was really expensive. We were a big school and it was really expensive. But once we'd spent the money, we couldn't get the kids to read because they saw it as a test and they hated the test. So they said, well, I've read the book and I can't remember it. And they didn't like the fact that it was afterwards. So the big book quiz came from me. And it is something that I sort of put together myself. And I'll explain all about it later. But for me, Accelerated Reader, I just couldn't make it work because of the cost, because it didn't motivate them. The only people it worked for were the ones who were already reading, and therefore it didn't work for what I needed. So I think if you're in a school where children are already reading, you just want them to read more, then Accelerated Reader is brilliant and you get all that data. But for me, it didn't work because I wasn't in that kind of school. So yeah, and I'll show it to you and I'll talk more about it later. So we introduced that. They were then sat down at a desk and they were answering questions. And we did that for about 6 months. Then I went to see the head teacher and I said to him, this is not enough. So we agreed to put a reading lesson on during curriculum time onto the timetable, so that reading lesson it no longer said library lesson. We stole one lesson from English. So instead of having 4 lessons a week, they only had 3. And we wrote on the timetable that it was their reading lesson. So their English teacher did their reading lesson, and then usually they did 2 reading lessons. So it was normally the English teacher, but some classes had 2 teachers. So instead of it saying library lesson and 4 lessons of English, it said 3 lessons of English and 2 reading. So we developed then, because we needed more space, we designated a reading room. So we had a classroom in school that was actually my classroom, but because I was assistant head then, I didn't teach very much. So we got rid of all the desks, had it decorated beautifully. We had a blue sky put in, bean bags, and all kinds of vocabulary around the room, and it was amazing. And I get that, most schools are going to say there's no way we could do that, but we just designated a space. We decided that if someone asked you to go and read a book and just read, we just want you to read. Nobody goes to sit at their dining room table. You sit on the sofa with a blanket, or so we gave them a bean bag. We said you can bring your slippers, you can bring fluffy socks. If you want a blanket, you can have it. We gave them a clipboard to answer the questions. So eventually then we ended up with 2 reading lessons a week. And they were doing it.